Hey guys, Chris here from Carolette Miniature Horses and Carolette Farm. I am putting our last few peppers outside here on the table where they can hopefully get a little sunshine and continue to grow and get acclimated to the outdoor temperatures. We don't want to shock them when they go into the garden. Usually that's a bigger thing when it's cold outside and they're coming from being warm inside. But now that the house is cooler, I want to kind of make sure that we don't shock them in the other direction, because sometimes it gets really warm now. We're having some days that are up into the 80s. So again, it's just working to kind of get those plants acclimated so that they're not shocked once they go into the ground. But the peppers are not quite ready to go into the ground. Some of them are getting nice and big, but we still want to give them a little more time. They, to me, can be a little more tender, a little more finicky than, say, the tomatoes. Here on the table, though, I have a few more tomato plants that we held off on planting a few days back. I think it was Monday, if I'm not mistaken. We were camping late last week and into the weekend. We returned home on Saturday. We hosted Easter here at the farm on Sunday, which was lovely. And then I think it was Monday that I got back to planting. And so these tomatoes were just a little on the small side, and I was worried that they were going to wither up if I put them in the garden. So they've had a few more days to harden, to grow, to get a little more substantial. But I'm noticing that some of these tomatoes are really beginning to get a little brown around their edges. And you know, I don't know really why they're unhappy. We've been watering them really well. It might be that they're kind of pot sour. Not that that's a term I've heard before, but they're just not happy. I don't believe they're root bound, because some of these we up potted into larger pots to give them more room to grow. Long story short, I have no idea what's going on with these tomatoes, but because they're not happy in the house, they're going to go into the garden. And it's kind of the old sink or swim garden trick here. So we've given them all the time and care and prep they're going to get, and now they need to be big boy tomato plants, and they need to make it and hack it in the garden. So that's what's next on my list today. And again, you know, we've got the regular care of the horses and the cleaning of the paddocks and such, but I wanted to show you a little bit about these plants, because we are at it steadily with our gardening, and you know, it's a big part of what we do here. So I just want to share that with you.
I've told you before where my minis tend to like to go to the bathroom where someone else has already gone. And so apparently the run-in here at the back of the barn is the place to go to the bathroom. Looks like just about everyone overnight has come up to the run-in and relieved themselves. You know, yes, there are some piles around the field, but there's a heavy concentration here. I don't so much think it's because they're staying in the run-in at night. You know, it's been very nice. The weather's been pleasant, so I just kind of had to chuckle at that, though. At least it's all concentrated in one spot when it comes to picking. We've got kitty cats and minis coexisting in the back field. Snuggles is nibbling on her morning hay, and little shrimp over there. I've now got two little helpers. Sometimes they're quite the distraction, these guys. Snuggles first came over and was pawing at the wheelbarrow. I did have to run her off. And these little guys, I might have to encourage them to go elsewhere. They do make it a little more challenging. And see, you just got a little up close look at Rockstar here, relieving himself at the bathroom spot. And Shenanigans has my pitchfork. He's gonna set to work here. He's just a silly guy. So, all right, Shan, I've got to get to work now. The flies are out. Everyone's gonna need their fly spray here in a minute. Once I finish picking and Sweetheart's done eating, I will, I'll get everyone sprayed up, and then they'll be much happier. We've got gnats and flies, all kinds of stuff. Hi, Rocky. What a good boy. All right, I do need to move Mr. Shenanigans. Yes, I do. I want to show you around the field here. Today is Friday. When we got back from our camping trip, I went ahead and raked up all of the old uneaten hay, and I have placed it in the run-in behind me to kind of help build up the ground so the horses aren't standing kind of in that wet spot. Just because of the drainage issues, it stays pretty wet. And yes, you can see there are a few new piles, one here where Snuggles is, and one just beyond her there to the left. That was the morning hay I put out today. But as we look around this back field, which has been primarily where I've been putting their hay with the exception of the front stall, you can see there are lots of uneaten remnants. Like, you know, there was a sizable pile over there they didn't eat. But as you look around the rest of the field, again, that's a new pile. Beyond that pile, though, is an older pile. As we scan around the field, though, you can see there is a lot of yellow, older, uneaten hay from this past week. I've not yet picked the barnyard or the stall. That's next on my list. So yeah, you can see I've not picked the stall, but she knows there's good fresh hay in there. And again, let me go to the bathroom where others have already gone. The story of the day. As I complete my sort of daily scan of the fields, you know, I check the fence lines, make sure all the insulators are as they should be, the wires are in place. And it's also really important to check on your water source every day. I must admit, Monday, when I refilled, I just added water on top. I did not actually scrub out my trough, but you can see it is getting a little dirty. So I'll give them another maybe 2 or 3 days. I'll have to watch it closely, but I'm gonna let them drink this down a little, and then I will definitely give it a really good scrub this weekend before refilling it. I tend to scrub every time, but I did kind of run out of time and energy on Monday. So
I'm not sure if you noticed, but when I was picking this morning, there was a significant amount of manure kind of everywhere. You know, the run-in was full of manure, the stall, the barnyard, there were tons of piles out in the field. So I want to give you a little info as to why things were a little dirtier than usual. And that's simply because I wasn't feeling well yesterday. I had zero energy. I was having some back pains, some like upper back pains. And I think a lot of that is just tied to the fact that I had a pretty significant gallbladder attack about 2 weeks ago. This occurred when we had traveled out of town to visit family. And, you know, I've since had blood work done, which was all normal. You know, that was good, right? But I did have an ultrasound done, and I do, in fact, have multiple immobile gallstones, they call them. And so they're kind of lodged, I think, right at kind of the opening of my gallbladder. And that is likely what caused the flare-up, you know, when my body was trying to produce more bile to break down the pretty heavily dairy day I had. You know, I had a couple grilled cheese sandwiches, and I had some queso, and I had sour cream on my burrito bowl. So I had a fair amount of dairy that day. But it still wasn't like a crazy, like heavy, fatty, over-the-top meal. But I think maybe the whole day had just kind of caught up to me. Anyways, that I think is what caused my gallbladder attack. But since then, since learning a little more about, you know, gallstones and your gallbladder and all that, I have really turned my diet up on its end. Having been a very heavily reliant person on dairy, you know, dairy is a really big part of my diet. You know, I've had to cut that out. And I know they say just to cut out the high fat dairy, but I have actually tried to cut everything out right now just to really clean, I don't know, just to kind of clean out my diet and to really be more mindful of what I'm eating. So I'm trying to not eat any real dairy right now. And I think that could also have been part of why my energy was so low. That, you know, having done this for 2 weeks, yes, I'm adding in more whole grains and I'm adding in more fruits, and I'm still eating, you know, a large volume of vegetables. I'm still eating chicken. That's kind of the one meat I do eat regularly is chicken, whether grilled or baked. But I think because the dairy has been cut out, I think I am perhaps a little low when it comes to like protein and calcium, and I'm sure other vitamins and minerals and such. So I'm just trying to kind of like balance this diet. For the last 5 or 6 years, my husband and I have predominantly been eating like a low carb, higher fat diet. And that works for me because, I enjoy chicken and I eat a lot of vegetables. And I love dairy, right? So now that I have, in a very like short span of time, flipped that to where I've cut out the dairy, which was a huge part of my diet, and I've added back in the grains and the fruits. I think my body is just feeling a little sluggish because it's a very different fuel now that I'm putting into my body. So, I'm still trying to figure this out. If I don't start to feel a lot better, consistently better, I'll probably go see like a dietitian because, they might have some other tips and tricks and all. I do eat tofu. I eat other like veggie-based products. So I'm sure I'm getting plenty of protein, but I just feel like there might be something that I'm lacking because I wasn't sick yesterday, but I definitely was not well. So I don't know what was going on, but I feel much better today. I was back at it. Spent a good long time picking everything. My energy's up so I can go garden now. So that's all good. But yesterday was just really strange. So, wish me luck as I try to figure this all out.
When our plants are outside for the day, we need to be really mindful to keep them well watered. And I'm going to give these guys a little more water just before I take them down to the garden. These are the tomato plants here that I'm going to go ahead and transplant into the garden. We also have some leeks here down on the end that I will probably go ahead and put in the ground. But I was telling you, these plants, they're just turning a little brown on the edges. So into the garden they go. And then here we have our pepper plants. These are the ones that we're going to give a little more time to. They'll probably go out in the garden next couple weeks. Some of these plants are getting pretty big though. I mean, some of them, these two here on the end, they're about as large as something you might find at your local farm and garden store. But some of these definitely need a little more time. But the last thing we want is for anything to dry out during the daytime. So we're going to give them a good drink of water now, and when they come back in the house this evening, I'll go ahead and give them some more water. This little breeze, I'll also say, is really good because when a gentle breeze blows like this, it helps the plants to become stronger, and that just gives the stalk a little more strength before they head out to the garden and have to weather all of the elements.
My favorite thing to use to water these really little plants is just a very inexpensive travel cup. This particular style cup has like a swivel opening on it, so you can, open it wider if you want to have a larger stream for something like the blueberries here. Much larger pot, larger surface area. But when we're watering the really small plants, the peppers and the tomatoes, they're not only in smaller pots, but they're also really fragile and very delicate when they first emerge. And so we like to use the travel cup with the opening very small, and that way it's a very gentle stream of water that we're applying. So yeah, this is the second season now that we have really enjoyed using a travel cup. And this is the same cup we used last spring. We used it this spring. I don't think it was even in our drinking rotation. It gets a little funky, because we don't wash it every day. So it really is just our gardening cup. But if you're like us and you've got little teeny plants, you might want to think about getting yourself a little travel cup or pulling one out of the cabinet. I mean, truth be told, this was a travel mug that we never used. It was kind of a throw it in the truck if you're going somewhere and you're not going to be super sad if you forget it. It was not a favorite cup of ours. So, but there's a time and a place for a cheap little mug, and this has been really great for gardening. off to the garden I go. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tomato plants, so that's not too much. And I have a 6-pack of leeks. You know, the leeks are planted a little thick. I think they'll be okay though, just to put in the ground the way they are. Sometimes we just plant the leeks directly into the soil in the garden. This year we started them early inside, so we'll see how they do. You know, when I plant them directly into the garden, I usually thin them a little more as they come up, but I don't think I'm going to disturb these, you know, the way they are. We'll see how they do. I have just tilled this little plot behind me with my little teeny handheld tiller. It's the perfect little garden tool to have. You know, my husband does the big till with a big full-sized tiller that he has to kind of muscle around. But then when I come back to do the planting, I just use my handheld here. It's really great. We've had it for a few seasons now. It's battery operated, it's lightweight, so I'm a big fan. But just to kind of show you, I counted down 6 tomato cages long, and that's as far as I tilled. There's just no sense in tilling the rest of this until we really figure out what we're going to plant there, and really waiting until we're ready to plant, because if I till it now and it gets rained on, it'll have to be retilled. So I've really just tilled what I know I need for today. And now it's time to go ahead and make the wells. I like to build the little round well and space my tomatoes first, kind of figure out my spacing before I actually put the plant in the ground. I've done it the other way around before. I've planted the plants and then tried to go back and build the well around them, and sometimes I don't have enough room and my cages won't fit or they're too far apart. So after doing this for a few years, this is kind of the strategy that I most prefer these days. But I'll go ahead, work on my spacing, make sure I have room for my cages, and then my final step will be to actually put the plant in the ground. And then I want to water everything really well. We should get a little rain overnight, perhaps a little more tomorrow. But the garden is at this particular stage now where we just want to make sure that everything has plenty of water. So here I have one of my tomatoes. This was in one of our slightly larger pots, so it had been sort of up potted, I'm going to say, from a small little square to this larger pot. And you can see the roots have done a fair amount of growing, but I would not really say that it was too terribly root bound. But the leaves are really turning brown here, and we're just going to stick them in the ground and cross our fingers, hope they take. You know, sometimes there are these mysteries, but the best we can do is to put them in the ground and to continue to water them well, and then just kind of see how they do. If anything, I would say actually the roots on these smaller plants, although they were turning brown as well. Here's another one over here, although it's not too brown, but this one had some brown on the leaves. But looking here, it definitely was not root bound. I mean, if anything, I'd say the roots on these plants that weren't looking so hot are a little on the immature side, barely holding the soil together. Not really sure what that means, but into the ground they go. And I mentioned earlier that I was gonna till and make the little wells, the little round areas, and then put the cages in the ground. Well, I used my last quality cage apparently when I put our other, 28 plus plants in the ground the other day. So I will need to go and get maybe at least seven more tomato cages. I have finished watering the 7 new little tomatoes that I just put in the ground, and I have gone back into the house and brought enough of these little stakes out for all of them, and I've put a little collar on them because they're still pretty small plants. I just want to make sure that they have a little extra stability for when the wind blows, and because we'll be getting some rain this weekend, I don't want them to take too hard of a beating. And so I've just given them this. It's like a little seat belt almost. They're not on very tight,
These little collars, they're just bread ties, twist ties, and like I said, they're not tight. I don't want to restrict the plant, the stem. There's room for the plant to wiggle and to grow. And you know, in a few days' time, when they're a little stronger and their roots have taken, I can come out and take these little collars off. But that's what you see here. They've all been staked up, and now they're good to go.
Thanks again for joining me today as I kind of did a little this and a little that around the farm. You know, here at Care-a-Lot, we do so much more than just the minis. You know, clearly the garden is a really huge part of our life and our journey here. So, you know, thanks again for watching. I hope you enjoyed today. My hair is quite windblown, you can see. And you can probably see from the sky above, we've got some darker clouds beginning to roll in. There you go. There you can really see those darker clouds. They are calling for some rain moving in this evening. Really hopeful though that it waits until maybe after dark. I have a student coming out this afternoon to help me work the minis. And it's always such a pleasure when I have an extra set of hands and we can work them in pairs. So again, I hope the rain holds off. But it's been another really wonderful day here on the farm, and I just hope that you have had a great time kind of following us around and seeing all the different things that we're up to and the different aspects of farm life here at Care-a-Lot. So, all right guys, have a great evening. Catch you later.